Jai Ganesh, please open your eyes. So I want to set the tone for the Mahabharata as purely symbolic. So set the stage for the Bhagavad Gita. So Mahabharata is about, it's really we're fighting the battle within ourselves, because there's an outer battle between the two sets of cousins. And, so there are the good guys are what is called Pandavas. I'm not going to write it because it'll muddy the waters, I just want you to get the big picture. Who watched the video? My video, okay. It's not bad. Yeah. I'm sorry? Yeah. And we had a leap of Hanuman too. That was fun. So, did you watch the video? Okay, cool. So the idea is, the good guys were 5 brothers, Pandava, and the bad guys were 100 brothers, Kaurava. And the bad guy's dad was called Dhritarashtra, who was blind. He was always blind. But he had 100 sons, so he knew what to do, right? Obviously, what to do, right? And his wife is called Gandhari, and since he's blind, she decided to blindfold herself. And these are all like symbolic, okay? So the blind king represents the mind, which is like weak. The mind gets weakened, It couldn't be learned helplessness in psychology, we keep getting whacked, right? Or it can be, getting manipulated by society. We get into the destination addiction. I had that, where you keep changing jobs or, my final Kali moment was I was a CEO of a tech company. I had 100 people, 15 in San Diego, 85 in Bangalore, and I get fired. So I kept changing, thinking it'll get me joy, but I kept getting whacked. Even when it worked, it never got happy. So my mind became weak. Your mind gets, so that's a metaphor of the blind king. And his wife represents the intellect, because the intellect is also blinded now. Normally the intellect controls the mind, but the intellect is blind too. And the 100 sons, the bad guys, represent the 100. So when you have a weak mind, it is what it is. I mean, that's life, Then you can have 100 sort of, you talk about 7 deadly sins, Lori. There are 100 different sins that can happen, right? Greed, jealousy, covetousness, addictions. So the 100 represents the 5 sense organs and the 5 organs of action, right? Jnanendriyas and karmendriyas, right? I won't go into that. We beat it up yesterday. So that's 10. And then you have 4 different directions, right? East, west, north, south. And then you have the diagonal. There's a word for that, I forgot, for directions in the, So there's another 4, right? North, northwest, southeast, etc. So that makes it 8, and then up and down. So that's 10. So you have 10 sense organs and organs of action times 10. So you can easily get into 100 different, deadly sins. That's the bad guys. And the good guys, the Pandavas, are the 5 chakras within us. So you have the, the Pandava Sahadeva is the root chakra, Muladhara. The next one is Nakula, the Swadhisthana, waters of our belly. The third one is Arjuna, which is the Manipura, which really represents fire. And then Bhima represents the air, which is same as Hanuman, right? Heart chakra, Annahata. And the last one is Yudhishthira, the elder brother, who is the most supposedly the wise, and he's the throat chakra. He speaks the truth. He's called the guy of Dharma, right, Rahul? So there's these 5 chakras which can look upward, because it's about realizing the self, you know. Arjuna and Sahasranama to realize the self, but they get caught in this battle. And Arjuna is he's the main sort of archer, right? So before the battle starts, Krishna, who's the charioteer, right, the driver, he takes Arjuna in between the 2 armies. So Arjuna sees on this side his grandfather, right? Christina, you here, right? You love your grandfather, even though you may not like other parts of people of your family. But you know, there's a grandparents, so Bhishma. Then his guru, Drona. So your teacher, you know, if your teacher is on the other side, somebody you respect, that's very traumatic. You know, somebody like you, Lola, you know, you had a teacher in the other tradition, and there's some trauma. Let's be real. You're switching here. So you were like Arjuna, okay? Except we are all Arjunas. There's like 7.5 billion like us. Yeah? This is the Kali Yuga Express. Yeah? And Krishna is driving that. Yeah? And we're in between the 2 armies, which is really the positive and negative. Is the classic tension of the opposites in Jungian psychology. Carl Jung called about holding the tension of the opposites. So there are things which are not easily resolvable, like Democrats, Republicans, Israel, Palestine, right? These things are long festering issues. Similarly, we have the long festering issues, the opposites, good and bad, like Jyoti talked about that. And they're going in the middle, and then Arjuna gets paralyzed. And the metaphor of the chariot is the 5 horses represents our 5 sense organs. So remember, this is each of us, right? And Krishna is the charioteer, which really represents the intellect, the buddhi. That's why Buddha got the name Buddha, because his intellect got the name buddhi, awakened to the source. And Arjuna is us, which is the self. That's why in Kali Yuga, the real guru is within us, the God. And the real demons are also within us. That's why we're mixed, but it's a wonderful opportunity. So what I encourage, and I had this conversation with Manoj, you know, so he's going to keep me honest, because he's a... do you want to share what you told your colleague at work said, what are you doing going to a temple? Because Manoj is a brilliant atheist, secular humanist. So you told something to your colleague. I want to let it all hang out.
I told them that the reason I'm coming here is to keep a friend from becoming a cult leader.
Do you want to expand on that a little more? Like what are people seeking and stuff? Let's be frank, because what I encourage is independent thinking. Is that fair? We are all different, but we have a brain. Let's use that. So I want to get everyone here Milos.
Sure. So people will tell you that they look for happiness, and that's not actually true. They look for meaning in life. They look for an answer, right? The answer preferably, but an answer will do if the answer is not available. And the question is kind of unimportant. People need an answer. The part that people don't generally realize is that all such answers have to be constructed from within. So there is a danger anytime someone gets into a position of authority and gets surrounded by people who are looking for an answer, that these people will start grasping for the answer. And even if the person sitting out there hasn't found their answer and has found a peace and purpose and meaning for themselves, they cannot give this to anyone. They can act as a gardener, watering, clipping, right, fertilizing here and there, guiding, but they cannot actually give the growth to the people in the audience. The problem is making sure that everyone understands that and that people don't try to get the answer from the person sitting there.
That's why I'm having you speak. So what to do? What do you recommend? Because he's been down this path in Tucson, some practices, and and one of the, I'm going to be honest, my real reason of having Milos, besides being a good skeptic and a philosopher in his own right, is also he's a neuroscientist, brilliant one, and I'm going to get into some brain waves scanning. There's a guy coming tomorrow from UCLA, doctor. So before and after, just like a guy who claims to be a neuroscientist who is very famous, he's a chiropractor. You know the name, right? Yeah, but you said it. I didn't say it. So it's not on. It's not on camera. When you say it, it's not on mic. For the first time, I'm glad you didn't use the microphone. Seriously. So there are people who, neuroscience are like, scientists are like bitches. Everyone can quote a neuroscientist, but he's a real one. He's got a PhD. So my interest is to have some brain scanning. Okay. So no, let him finish. Go ahead.
Sure, we can find something. Before we get there, I will chide you for using neurotransmitter names as archetypes. All right? You're using oxytocin, dopamine, cortisol, etc., in the very similar way that you would use Hanuman, right, as describing a particular state of mind. And that holds a danger because people will go out into the world and read about these things, and then they can kind of slip down the wrong path. Because, for instance, oxytocin, how many people here are believing evangelical Christians?
In what?
Believing evangelical Christians. Do we have anyone here?
He was. One dude was. You, and then we have Jehovah. Well,
Right. So very few. But for all of us who are not, when you feel oxytocin, right, you would start to feel very alienated from evangelical Christians because they're not the part of the group. Oxytocin makes you very attuned to the people who are with you.
Tribalistic.
Yes, but very much against people who are not part of the group that you're in. So it is an archetype. You can use it as an archetype, but it has to be done carefully.
Thank you. I'm using it to describe an emotion they feel, but not to. Yeah, absolutely. That's why I have you here. You have a point, and then no, I want to have Govinda speak, please, because he's like Jambavan. He's the Jambavan. Remember the Jamba Juice archetype? There's a bear. He's a wise bear. He's been around the block a few times.
So I agree with about half of what was just said, in that we are seeking the answer. We're not really looking for the question. But I would challenge to say that we have to believe in something, whether it comes from you or Jyoti or some cult leader. We have to believe in that thing first before we can realize that that thing is not our thing. Because the only way that I get to find my thing is by finding what is not my thing. It's just part of the path. All of the teachers who have taught me maybe something that was not beneficial is still beneficial. It doesn't feel like it at the time, but I have to get the unbeneficial to realize and to find out what is beneficial. And in the end, the answer that we're all seeking in this philosophy is the same answer for everybody. And it depends on, you can learn the hard way, the soft way, the fast way, or the slow way. But we all get there from listening to the people that maybe aren't the best teachers.
Thank you. Eloquent. If I may ask a personal question, what's your motivation in studying with Jyoti?
Because I have studied with enough teachers to know that what they were teaching me had elements of truth, but it was not the truth that I was seeking. And I believe that what I can get from Jyoti and from the teachings, because the teachings that I get from Jyoti are as close to the source as I have had experience with, there is very little distortion. There's very little personal belief
Or agenda.
or agenda that comes from the teachings from Jyoti. There's very little story. There's no story. There's examples, and by story, I think I'm talking really more in the psycho-spiritual sense of I have a story in my head that makes me believe this. None of that story is there.
Right.
And I find that every time I learn something that is not me, I get a little happier. My separation by learning what is not me makes me just a little happier each time.
Thank you. And personally, Govind does, and you know, you've seen him, Julia, Rick, right? I see a huge change in 1 year. I mean, it's only I sort of see changes in people after, you know, because I meet them 6 months or a year, massive change.
Well, and I didn't bring this up yesterday, but you were talking yesterday about you need to get whacked, and it's that maybe Kali moment that makes you wake up. And my experience, the very short version is, I'm a 14-year-old kid living in a town of 3,500 people, and I'm gay, and I get outed as a sophomore in high school, and my 14-year-old life is horrible. So I flee 3,500 miles away, and I am a foreign exchange student, and I literally live in trauma, in fear and trauma for 25 years. And 6 weeks ago, I went back to that place where I was a foreign exchange student, and I walked the exact same places, and I went to the exact same movie theater, and I rode the train from Brussels, Belgium to Bruges. And in that train ride, something happened. And it wasn't a Kali moment. It was a Govindas moment.
I would call it a turning moment.
Yeah, it was absolutely it felt like I was off-gassing 25 years of trauma, of fear, of realizing that the person that I was today is not the person that I was 25 years ago. And I didn't do anything. I didn't ask for anything. It wasn't a Kali moment. It was a God moment.
Yes.
So I didn't need to get slapped. I didn't need to go do something. And trust me, I have done enough LSD and ayahuasca and psilocybin and...
And you were trying to have me make an announcement last year about LSD microdosing, remember?
What?
You came up to the back and said, hey, can you know?
It's all helped me. It took all of those things. It took a lot of wax to get to the one point in time when I didn't have to do anything. God did it all. Or something.
Yeah.
No, I didn't do anything. I sat on a train.
That's the Kali Yuga Express.
It is the Kali Yuga Express. And I guess all I'm saying is that it was a whole bunch of bad teachings.
Yeah.
It was a whole bunch of sometimes questionable
And
teachings.
no names, right? You and I
No,
know the
no names. Never any names.
We're on live streaming, dude. I'm just beginning to realize, you know.
Yeah, me too. And they're not bad teachings. They were the teachings that I needed at the time that I got them.
Right.
But it was with those that I sit here today.
Yes.
I come back here. This is, you and Jyoti are the only teachers that I've been working with since 2015. I come back again and again because this is the closest place to source that I can get without story and without ego and without the need to repay anything. I show up,
Thank
I
you.
get the teachings, and
It's
I
very
leave.
touching, man. I want to move on. No, it's from the heart. Love it. I mean, he's Jambavan. Would you agree? You know, he's been around the spiritual block a few times. And so there's a Kali moment where we get whacked. And that can, it can lead to spiraling, or we can help us. But there's a turning point. So the turning point in, both Ramayana and Mahabharata were about property dispute, which is still, right, going on now in everyone's family, right? Somebody dies, there's always a property dispute. And it was about a woman. Still going on now, right? So in Ramayana, it was, the property dispute was Ayodhya, remember? Ayodhya metaphorically means lack of, peace of mind, Ayodhya. Yodhya is war, Ayodhya. And in Mahabharata, and of course you had Sita, right, who gets abducted. In Mahabharata, it's the city of Hastinapur. Hastina is like wisdom, elephant. Big head, Ganesha, wisdom. And it was also about another woman, Draupadi, right? You know that. And she's the wife of the 5 Pandavas. So here you have, a woman having 5 husbands. There's a story out that, but I want to get to the point. And, the whole war started because of basically a lot of jealousy, by Duryodhana. He was the leader of the 100 bad guys. Duryodhana. So difficult to fight. Du means difficult. Yodhana is to fight, like Ayodhya. So it's the ego in us. The ego leads to covetousness, jealousy. He was extremely jealous that why were the good guys getting all, the people behind them, the community. Why is Lakshmi going to the good guys, Lakshmi is peace of mind. He didn't have peace of mind. And so the war also started because there was a game of dice between Yudhishthira, the head of the good guys, and Duryodhana, the bad guy. And in that game of dice, there was manipulation. So the gambling is, is a one negative thing. You're not supposed to gamble. It's really it's a spectacular dopamine release. The Las Vegas. It's not an archetype. It's an emotion. The slot machines give you enough to get you that high. And so the good guys, the Yudhishthira, he loses everything. He loses his kingdom. He even loses his brothers. Everything was wagered. And the final insult was his wife, Draupadi, was also wagered, and he loses her. And not only loses her, now she becomes the property of Duryodhana, and the next bad guy is called Dushasana. So asana means like you're in control. Dushasana means he's out of control, his passions, So he tried to, disrobe her in public. So the sari she's wearing, he's like, and the 5 brothers can't do anything. It's a time of honor. She's given away. She's lost. So she gets really mad, right? Lola, you'd get mad if you're getting wagered. That's some serious triggering right there. Yeah. And then she screams, Krishna, save me. And Krishna set it up that the sari was infinite, So he kept doing that, and it kept going and going. And this is like Bollywood movie, It's there on Netflix. You can watch all this, the disrobing scene, and then she gets really mad. It's her honor, you know, she's been publicly insulted. So normally she's very nice and she's like Parvati. Rachel, there's a beautiful sitting Parvati on the right. Yeah. Yeah. So that's Parvati, and her hair is like a bun, right, at the top. That was somebody's question. The Lakshmi's Arati, you said so look at her hair, similar as Lakshmi. It's a bun. So what she does is, Draupadi was like Parvati, Shakti energy, about building the kingdom. Thank you, Rachel. Building, the community. But then that was a turning point, not the Kali moment, the turning point, where she lets her hair down. And she says, I will not put my hair in a bun again until it's washed with the blood of the bad guys. And she turns from Parvati to Kali. And you want to show Kali? There's a Kali right there. Awesome, yeah. Careful, yeah. You don't want to mess with Kali, yeah. Look at the hair of Kali. Please turn her around, dear. Thank you. Look at the hair. Now, this is not mentioned in the Mahabharata. I'm interpreting this. This is symbolic. This is like secret, yeah. Keep it to yourself and the YouTube audience. So Kali drinks blood in the story. We're going to get into Kali tomorrow. Shiva and Kali. You look at her, yeah. You're ready, Lola. Yeah. So that becomes the turning point. That instigates the war. Okay? And then the Bhagavad Gita. But I have a question for you, especially people who are familiar. Normally, the eldest son in the family, because in India, the elder is always shown respect, like the Native American, you know. Why didn't the eldest son Yudhishthira get the teachings of the Bhagavad Gita? Why did Arjuna get it, the archer? Normally, Yudhishthira is the dharma guy, he speaks the truth, he's the eldest son. Why didn't Krishna teach him the Bhagavad Gita? Use the phone, please. And you're lying down too. Yes, Julia.
It's because Arjuna was the warrior, and that's what needed to be done. It wasn't like a battle of wits that they needed to navigate. It got to the point where, you know, they had to fight. And he was
But
the best
remember,
suited to do
everyone is
this.
fighting. Like all the 5 good guys are fighters in their own right. Bhima is very strong. He has a club, the mace, which Hanuman has. Arjuna is the most skilled fighter. Absolutely, you have a point. But so is his elder brother. He's a fighter too. So why didn't he get the teachings? He actually gets another teaching from Bhishma called, that's another big text called Moksha Purva. You know, that's a whole separate text, okay? Anyone else want to hazard your guess?
He's a yogi, and he's just
Who?
Arjuna,
Okay.
and he is like easy to identify for person, whereas Yudhishthira is not. He's maybe too educated, too.
When you're using the word maybe, I don't see confidence in you.
Oh, I'm guessing.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. Yes, Jeff.
Well, I mean, for one, it was his destiny to do so, right? I mean, that's what Krishna
Sure.
tells him.
But that's a
but
cop-out
then-
answer. Right?
Yeah.
You can say everything is destiny.
I would just say he was a great siddha, that he had lots
Siddha.
of cities and
Yes.
and it
Arjuna.
was
Yeah. During the
his-
forest.
his internal battle.
Yes. That's a
And
point. But I'm like a professor who has that one answer in mind. I used to hate those professors. You better give those. Rick, go for it. There's no one right answer, but I'll give you my best guess. You know, these are all
Yeah.
Myths and metaphors, yes.
So all the brothers have flaws, and I think Arjuna is a uniquely flawed character, but the flaw he does not possess is an unwillingness to listen to Krishna, that he will listen to Krishna to begin with. Isn't there the part where somebody insults him or his bow, and he's going to kill somebody, and then
Right.
Krishna's like, don't. Or
Right.
Krishna influences him,
Right.
and at that moment,
Right.
you realize he's the one, flawed as he is, that will accept the learning
Got
that
it.
he's about to be dealt.
Rick, you're close. Thank you. It was a weakness too. Great answers. Yudhishthira, see, Arjuna had the fire. Remember, he's here, the Manipura. And he, part of Vedanta is to almost like, it's called mumukshutva. You have a little bit of that, Rajan, where you're like dunked in 20 feet of water and you're like fighting for, that's the search for knowledge, the self. And Yudhishthira had a complacency. He was spiritually wise, he was a wise one, but he was complacent. He thought he had figured it all. To use your statement, Peter, he had certainty. Certainty is dangerous, it becomes religious. Okay? Arjuna had uncertainty, he was paralyzed. And he was, he's a perfect student. He was honest. He said, I don't know what to do, right? And he was an archer, right? An archer has laser beam focus. Remember Jyoti said he can hit the eye. There's a story where he hits the eye of the fish looking at water. And he wins the bride, Draupadi. That's a story, Sorry, Lola. He wins again. That is life. The women are the object. I get it. I feel you. I feel you. You keep it real. I love that. But then an archer is also steps back. So there's a spotlight consciousness and a floodlight consciousness. Okay, Arjuna had that. And he had the fire of a student who's desperate. And he laid bare. He wasn't complacent. So part of the journey in our spiritual path is never be complacent. Because, some of you are new, some of you you've been doing this 30 years, Arati, right? As a yoga student and teacher. So a certain, complacency can get in, and I see so many people getting into yoga or any spiritual path, and in the beginning it's you get a lot of hits, you feel, hey, I feel good. It's like counting prime numbers. Anyone who's a math geek will love this. So it's easy in the beginning. 1, 3, 5, 7, you get all these hits. It's predictable. But as you go further on the path, it gets longer, the next hit. It's unpredictable. You don't know what the prime number is after 59. You don't know when the next is. That's where the fire has to be there. The complacency, you have to step away, become like Arjuna, recapture the fire.